Ever bought a great table saw and then realized the fence drifts, the dust goes everywhere, and every cut feels like a negotiation? Today, we're fixing that with the 7 best cabinet-style table saw picks counted down to the one I'd put in my own shop. 7. SKIL Table Saw TS6307.00. The first time I set up the SKIL, I immediately understood why so many DIYers talk about it. It's straightforward, it's approachable, and it actually feels more serious than its price suggests. It runs a 15-amp motor and gives you a surprisingly roomy 25.5-inch rip capacity, which is a big deal when you're trying to break down plywood without fighting the tool the whole way. It also comes with integrated folding legs, so it stores easily and doesn't require a dedicated stand or bench to be usable right away. What I genuinely enjoyed while using it was the rack and pinion fence design. That style of fence adjustment tends to keep the fence parallel to the blade with less fuss, and on this saw it made quick sizing cuts feel way more controlled than a typical slide and pray fence. For basic cabinetry parts, like ripping face frame stock, cutting shelving strips, or trimming down panels, it was consistent enough that I didn't feel like I had to babysit every inch of the cut. In real use, it's at its best when you treat it like a capable job site saw, not a full cabinet saw replacement. I used it for ripping poplar and pine, cutting plywood backs, and even quick repeat rips for shop jigs. The portability is a real advantage if you don't have a permanent workshop or you move tools around often, and the built-in stand makes that easy without buying extra accessories. Now, the downside shows up when you push it like a heavier, more refined saw. With lighter job site builds, vibration and noise are part of the deal, and you'll notice that especially on longer rip cuts where you want the workpiece to glide smoothly. Also, dust collection is never amazing on open, portable saw designs. Even though this one includes a dust port elbow meant to help keep the area cleaner, it's still not that sealed cabinet saw experience. 6. DEWALT Table Saw DWE7485. Moving up to the DEWALT, the immediate vibe is compact, fast, job site tough. It uses an 8¼ blade and a powerful 15-amp motor that spins at 5,800 RPM. And on typical construction lumber, it just chews through cuts without hesitation. The saw also has a rack and pinion fence system and a 24.5-inch rip capacity, which is enough to handle a lot of sheet good work in a small footprint. In my testing, the best part of the DWE7485 is how quickly you can go from folded-up storage mode to making accurate cuts. It's light enough to move around easily, about 46 pounds, and because it's compact, it fits small garages and tight work areas where a bigger saw would feel like a permanent roommate. If you're building basic cabinets, shelving, or doing remodel work, that convenience matters more than people admit. Accuracy is solid for what it is. That fence adjusts quickly and doesn't feel sloppy. And for repetitive rips, like cutting a stack of cabinet stretchers or toe kick pieces, the saw can keep pace without constant recalibration. I also like that it's designed with onboard storage for important components, so you're not hunting for parts when you want to swap setups. But here's where I have to be a little critical. The 8¼ blade size is the trade-off, and you feel it when you start thinking like a cabinet shop woodworker. Your max cut depth and your blade options aren't as flexible as a 10-inch saw, and when you're working thicker stock or want the broadest blade selection, you'll wish you had the more standard format. That doesn't make it a bad saw, it just means it's not the most future-proof if your projects grow in complexity. 5. DEWALT Table Saw DWE7491RS. The DEWALT is where things start feeling more serious, especially because of the rolling stand. The first time I wheeled it into position and locked it down, it felt like a tool designed for people who actually cut wood all day, not just weekends. It has a 15-amp motor and a 32.5-inch rip capacity, which is a huge upgrade if you're frequently ripping plywood or trimming wide panels. What stands out most in use is the rack and pinion telescoping fence system. The fence movement is smooth, the adjustment feels deliberate, and once you lock it, it stays put. That's the difference between pretty accurate and I can trust this on a cabinet side panel without sweating. For built-ins, closet systems, and wider shelving cuts, that capacity makes the workflow feel less cramped. I also appreciated the depth of cut capability. 3 1/8 inches at 90 degrees and 2 1/4 inches at 45 degrees, because it opens up thicker material cuts that smaller saws can struggle with. When I ran hardwood through it, it felt confident, as long as I used a sharp blade and fed at a reasonable pace. It's still a job site style saw, but it's one that can stretch into more ambitious projects. The rolling stand is not just a convenience, it changes how often you'll actually use the saw. If you have a shared garage or limited space, being able to roll it out, work, and roll it back means the saw doesn't have to dominate your shop layout. And stability on that stand is good enough that longer rips don't feel like you're balancing on a folding table. For many people, the DWE7491RS is the sweet spot. Big capacity, great fence system, and mobility without feeling flimsy. If you're not ready to commit to a full cabinet saw, but you want cabinet-like results with smart setup, it's a strong pick. 4. F2 Fusion Tablesaw. The Laguna F2 is where we step into that real shop machine territory, heavier, cleaner, and built around better dust control. One of the big reasons people look at Laguna is dust collection design, and the F2 highlights that with a cabinet-style build and a 4-inch dust port, plus additional collection at the blade guard. In my shop, connected to a decent extractor, it simply kept the air cleaner than portable saws ever do. The overall cutting feel is more refined. The saw is designed to be a cabinet-type table saw, and that shows up as less vibration and a smoother feed when you're ripping longer stock. Laguna lists a 10-inch blade setup with a 5/8-inch arbor and 4,500 RPM arbor speed, and the saw felt like it wanted to cut clean rather than just cut fast. One thing I noticed is that the Fusion line leans into a hybrid fence concept, kind of blending European and American fence ideas. It was very usable for precision work, especially on sheet goods and furniture parts where repeatability matters. But it's also the kind of saw where you should take time dialing in your workflow, because it's no longer job site quick, it's shop accurate. If you do a lot of dado work, it's also built to handle dado width up to 3/4 inch, which is a common need for shelving and cabinet joinery. With the right setup, it's excellent for cutting consistent joinery parts without the saw feeling strained. The Laguna F2 Fusion hits a really nice balance. Not the most industrial machine on this list, but a meaningful jump in refinement and dust management. Two things that matter a lot once you start building cleaner, nicer projects.
3. Grizzly Industrial G1023 RLX.
The Grizzly is the maximum cutting capacity for the money kind of cabinet saw. It's a 3 HP, 240 volt cabinet saw, and the first time you run thick hardwood through it, you get that instant confidence that only a real cabinet saw provides. It also offers a huge 60-inch rip capacity to the right, which is fantastic if you're regularly cutting large panels or want a wide side table for support. This saw is designed like a shop centerpiece. Big cast iron work surface, serious weight, and a full cabinet base. In use, that translates to stability. Long rips feel straighter, and you're not fighting the machine. The arbor speed is listed at 4,200 RPM, and the cut quality I got was consistent once the blade and fence were dialed in. Grizzly also emphasizes dust collection with a 4-inch dust port and an encapsulated blade dust extraction setup, and that design really helps compared to open job site saws. When I connected it to a collector, cleanup felt like a different world. Less sweeping, less fine dust hanging around, and fewer chips getting launched into the shop. Safety and usability features are also built in, like quick-release blade guard switching and a large stop paddle, which matters because cabinet saws invite longer work sessions. The more comfortable and safe the saw feels, the easier it is to stay focused on the workpiece instead of constantly thinking about the machine. If your priority is horsepower, capacity, and overall shop saw value, the G1023 RLX is a heavy hitter. It's not the fanciest brand name on the list, but it's the kind of saw that makes you feel like your shop just leveled up overnight. 2. Powermatic Table Saw PM1000. The Powermatic feels like it was made for woodworkers who care about smoothness and fit and finish, not just raw specs. It's a cabinet-style saw with a 1 3/4 HP motor, and it uses an AccuFence system that feels solid and predictable when you're setting up precise rapes. In my experience, it really shines on furniture parts, face frames, and repeat cabinet components where consistency is the whole game. One practical detail I love is that it can run on 115/230 volt power, which makes it easier to integrate into more home shops without immediately rewiring everything. It also uses a 4-inch dust port and calls for around 350 CFM minimum dust collection. And when paired with a decent collector, it keeps the cabinet area much cleaner than lighter saws. The PM1000 also has a push-button arbor lock for easier blade changes, which sounds small, but if you actually change blades often, it's a quality-of-life feature you'll appreciate. I found myself swapping between a ripping blade and a cleaner crosscut blade more often just because it was less annoying to do. Cut feel is where Powermatic earns its reputation. The table and controls feel refined, and adjustments don't feel rough or grindy. When you're sneaking up on a perfect fit for a drawer front or trimming a panel for a seamless cabinet reveal, that smooth control is worth money. For many serious hobbyists and small pro shops, the PM1000 is that dream forever saw before you get into the highest-end safety systems and big industrial builds. It's not about being the most powerful, it's about feeling precise every single day you turn it on. 1. SAWSTOP Cabinet Saw. PCS 31230, TGP 236. If there's one saw that changes the entire conversation, it's the SAWSTOP. Yes, it's a premium machine, but the reason it earns the top spot is simple. It's designed to dramatically reduce life-changing injuries. The patented SAWSTOP safety system is built to stop the blade on contact with skin, stopping in less than 5 milliseconds and dropping the blade below the table. What that means in real life is you don't have to choose between performance and safety. You can have both. The professional cabinet saw line is known for fit and finish, and with a 36-inch T-blind fence system, the fence action is smooth, the lockup is confident, and measurement feels repeatable in a way that makes cabinet work faster. When I was cutting panels and dialing in widths, it felt like the saw held the line exactly where I set it. The safety system isn't magic, it's engineering. The system monitors an electrical signal on the blade and uses the difference between wood and human conductivity to detect contact, then activates a brake mechanism. That detail matters because it helps explain why the saw behaves like a normal high-end cabinet saw until the moment something goes wrong. From a workflow perspective, this saw is built for serious, daily use. The control box constantly checks system readiness, and the overall design is meant to keep operation predictable and confident. When you're running lots of cuts, especially repetitive cabinet parts, confidence isn't just comfort, it's what keeps your hands steady and your results consistent. If you can afford only one buy once, cry once saw, and you want top-tier precision with standout safety, this is it. And the wild part is, once you get used to that extra layer of protection, it's hard to imagine going back to anything else. If you tell me your budget range and whether you need portability or a stationary shop setup, I'll recommend the single best pick from this list for your exact situation.